This is the story of the students who spend their nights in tents to experience the biggest rivalry in college basketball. It's 1:30 a.m., they're almost asleep, and...
Let's go! Let's go! This is a tight track, Erin and me, tight track, Erin.
Each year, at the beginning of spring semester, dozens of tents pop up on the lawn outside of Cameron Indoor Stadium.
In the course of the weeks leading up to the Duke-Carolina game played in Cameron, these dozens of tent groups will turn into more than 100 as the lawn fills with students willing to live outside and a chance to see this historic rivalry.
The tradition goes back decades and has evolved over time, leading to the complex system and rules that govern the tent city today.
So, what is Krzyzewskiville?
I mean, it was cold. That's really the thing I remember the most.
It's quite a tradition.
A convenient spot to sleep when I don't want to trek back to East.
A tradition that I don't quite understand fully.
The marathon, not a sprint.
Totally based on how passionate you are.
Rite of passage. It's just something you did.
My Duke experience embodied, it's struggling to find whether I should study or sleep.
Really unique, incredible community.
The hub of Duke basketball on campus.
In a way, Kville is it's almost like a religious experience.
My name is John Scheer. I was here at Duke from 80 to 84, Coach K's first 4 years. And I was sports editor of the Chronicle my sophomore and junior year, and editor-in-chief my senior year.
During Scheer and Krzyzewski's first year, the team was formidable because of players like Gene Banks, who were left over from a Final Four run under Duke's previous coach.
My freshman year, I thought it was a big deal to have to get out of bed and go get in line for the Carolina game at 8 o'clock the morning of a game that the tip-off was at 1.
As players graduated and recruiting slumped, the team's records got worse. They lost 6 games in a row to North Carolina between 1982 and 1984.
The team went 37-3 in 1986. It was new to Duke. You know, they had only had a team in recent memory in 1977-78 that had been so good. It was just kind of a, lightning in a bottle kind of year.
Kim Reed was a senior in 1986 when her and some friends playing a drinking game in Eden's Quad concocted the idea of getting a tent to stay outside Cameron leading up to their last home game.
First we thought we were calling it our little city, and so we thought, okay, it needs to be like something city. And everybody, was kind of like, oh, well, Ville sounds kind of homier and cuter and, more homespun. So I really couldn't tell you who called it Krzyzewskiville, but it was so long that they wrote Krzyzewski and then they'd run out of room, so they put a hyphen. First night that we were there, some local TV cameras, or TV stations sent some cameras out and did a little 2-minute story on, hey, look at these crazy kids out waiting outside of Cameron. And a bunch of people in Chapel Hill saw it. And so at about 2 o'clock in the morning on the second night, a bunch of people from Chapel Hill came over and threw huge buckets of ice water on our tents.
Coming up next, traveling around Cameron. A crisp, cool Sunday morning at Krzyzewskiville, before the Maryland game. Let's see who we can talk to.
Sure can. You're in section 2. We're letting in about 25 minutes, so don't go anywhere.
So what made you want to be a line monitor?
Well, it seemed like a fun job. And since I'm on DSG, a lot of other people were doing it.
So does this give you like a sense of power over other people?
I think that's saying a little too much. That's going a little too far. I'm just helping out.
Do you ever give stamps of earlier sections to your friends, or would you not admit it if you did?
That would be compromising the integrity of my job. I wouldn't do that.
What kind of stamp do you have right now?
Go to Hill, Carolina.
And what section is that?
Section 2.
It's only section 2? What's the stamp for section 1?
It's a Blue Devil.
Oh, okay.
But
that's pretty good.
Unfortunately, we have a very large section 1.
And how many tents are there for the Maryland game today?
It looks like there's probably around 8 to 10.
By the time Erin arrived in Durham in 2001, tenting had nearly evolved into its modern form.
I went into Cameron for the first time and I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible, this is amazing. So I kept going to more games and I didn't actually tent until my sophomore year. It was the first time I experienced tenting. And it was because then I had a group of friends. I was living right down the street, I guess, from Krzyzewskiville, over in the clock tower. So it was easy enough to come, so they convinced me they needed one more person to tent, so they finally convinced me to tent. They told me it wouldn't be a huge commitment, and I had no idea what I was getting myself into. So back when I was a student here, Krzyzewskiville was kind of a rite of passage. It was just something you did, and my understanding is it's still kind of the same. A lot of people tent because they're supposed to tent, not necessarily because it's about going to the basketball game. And then the experience of it was, it was cold. That's really the thing I remember the most. It was just stupidly cold. And you would sit there and you would try to work on your laptop and it would just be too cold. And so you would sit there and you just kind of freeze until someone came and took their turn. Back when I was here, the way we kind of communicated for tent scheduling was we had an email list, we had a spreadsheet that was kind of shared amongst the group so we all knew when we were scheduled. And yeah, we had cell phones, so if someone didn't show up, we got mad at them. We called them, we were like, where are you?
Denon decided to write a book to collect the amalgamated stories of Krzyzewskiville experiences. Called the Krzyzewskiville Tales, it was based on the idea of the Canterbury Tales.
I think one of the most interesting things about the history of Krzyzewskiville is how lots of different people claim kind of lineage. That makes sense. So depending which alumni group you talk to, different people have different stories about when it started. I think the official date is 1986. But of course, if you talk to anyone before 1986, they'll tell you, no, we were doing it before then. And of course, it was always better when they were doing it than now. And the students now are always terrible.
I'm Derek Saul. I'm a junior here at Duke. I'm the sports editor at the Chronicle. And I have not tented. I did walk-up line my freshman year. It's still a tradition that I don't quite understand fully. Again, I guess maybe I'm not the full Duke student of that. I haven't tented, but it's really, I don't know. It's definitely a tradition unlike any other.
There's no way to talk about this without coming off like old man shouts at crowd, right? It's like your parents are spending all that money to send you to Duke, and you're gonna sleep in a tent for 2 months. It's quite a tradition. I can't imagine doing it myself, and I've been to a lot of Duke basketball games in the years. So props to the people who put up with it.
I definitely think it's like a rite of passage. In some form. Watching Duke basketball and being, I guess, crazy with an IE about Duke basketball is certainly something that is, a pretty essential part about being a Duke student.
The tent village, Krzyzewskiville, they've had so much, rain, cold. It's been amazing. These kids are terrific. Are just terrific.
Welcome to Krzyzewskiville! There are several different levels of tenting, each one of which has precedence in terms of your seat on game day, or your standing, I should say, because no one sits in Cameron. And that really depends on how many people your group has to be in the Krzyzewskiville at one time and when you start. So the first level is black tenting. Black tenting always starts the first weekend back from winter break. And it's the most intense and rigorous level of tenting. You have to have 2 people during the day at all hours and 10 people at night. So really, only the hardcore Duke basketball fans go out for black tinting. In some years, it's been in such high demand that we've had to administer a trivia test in keeping with the idea of meritocracy just to qualify spots for it. So that'll last for about 2, sometimes 2.5 weeks in January. After that, we'll have blue tinting, which is still pretty rigorous. You have to have 6 people at night and 1 during the day. And blue tinting lasts another 2 weeks. You're going, you register, you're going to get into the game, your spots are still going to be pretty decent. And then finally we get to white tinting, which is generally our highest demand tinting. White tinting, you only have to have 2 people at night, 1 person during the day, and to qualify you go to this very cool campus-wide event called the Race to the Secret Spots, where we'll compose riddles and clues about places on campus, and whoever gets there first gets their roster submitted for a white tint spot. And then we continue to submit rosters up to 130. 100 of those are guaranteed. Those are black, blue, and white. They sum together to 100 tints. The last 30 are called flex tints, and while they aren't necessarily guaranteed entry based on what we've done in the first year of flex tinting where we were able to get everyone in, it's very likely that those who flexed in will get in the game. So flex tinting follows the same rules as white, and it's essentially those who did not earn white during the Race to the Secret Spot, or those who sign up to register after the start date of white tinting if there's still availability. So occasionally Grace is something that isn't really planned from the line monitor's end and really is a matter of the elements, so to speak. So we enjoy rewarding people for being in Kville, but we're not sadists. We don't want people to be here if it's unsafe or extremely cold or conditions that aren't conducive to health. So if it's below 25 degrees, if there's wintry precipitation accumulating greater than 2 inches of snow or half an inch of ice, if there are thunderstorms, all of that's accounted for in our policy, and that can all be reasons for grace. Other reasons as well, if we have a big win and the crazies showed up and showed out, then yeah, you earn a night off. We like to use that as a way to sort of reward people and keep them invested and keep that excitement built up so they can bring the energy on game day. At any point in time, could be 12 p.m., could be 1 a.m., could be anything in between, the line monitors will call a tent check. And the purpose of this is really just to make sure that the folks who have, committed to this time are in Kville, and they're not sort of trying to take a shortcut over the folks who definitely want to put as much time as they want to earn that spot for Carolina. So, obviously tent checks are never very popular, especially when it's in the middle of the night, but the reason that they exist, it's just to reward the people who are like, yes, I've made this schedule, I've committed to this time, and I'm going to get, my spot for the best event in sports. So after each tent check, there's an hour of what we call grace, for which students can go and eat, shower, use the bathroom, get stuff for their class or whatever. Generally a sort of time just to kind of reset and get recalibrated, and then get back to action. So at the end of the year, we'll do personal checks, P-checks, where everyone in every tent has to make a certain number of checks individually, and then once you're done with that, it's time to send Carolina to hell.
On the tenters side, checks can be a bit more controversial.
Okay, so we're a white tent. We did the scavenger hunt. We started on the first night of white tenting, but as you know, you can only miss 2 checks per phase. So we missed 2 checks, and so we got booted within the first week of white tenting. The first one, someone was sleeping, and there was a check in the middle of the night, and then his phone died, and he went back to his room during grace and fell asleep in his bed. So we missed that check.
Second time.
Thomas, why don't you share?
I just slept through the sirens. The sirens went off at 8:35. And
yeah. Just middle of the day.
I started napping at 8:30. I was working with my laptop, sitting up. I closed my eyes. At 8:45, I wake up, and I didn't believe my phone when there was a check at first, so I ignored it. And it turns out there was a check, and so then that was Tempocalypse, as I call it.
So
it's a very painful moment in my life.
Bumped from 71 to 101.
Because you have to wait 24 hours to re-register, so there were a bunch of groups that were signing up in the period that we had to wait. So now we're group 101.
Major L's. Take.
How did you feel, Thomas, when you missed the check?
One of the most painful things I've ever experienced. When I wasn't sure that if we were going to be able to get back in or not, I was like considering buying like a plane ticket to get off campus because I thought people were going to be like, I was like, I'm never going to be able to talk to any of these people ever again.
We were pretty nice to you.
We were pretty nice.
There were some long messages.
Behind every great or apocalyptic tent group is the tent.
So
this is our tent.
Our tent is in shambles. It's not great. It's kind of unlivable right now. We're about to put up a second smaller tent tonight in order to be able to sleep here for the next 3 nights of tenting.
But this is our big, beautiful black tent that's been standing. This is tent 2 of 2. So I'll take you inside. Again, it's the hurt locker. As you can see, I'm interrupting one of my tent mates studying. Classic kind of K-ville experience. This is Dan. Hi, Dan. This is kind of our snack corner and cough drop corner. It's very important to have both those things in K-ville. This is kind of my area. As you can see, since it's been white tinting, we've gotten a little overlapping, but you know, this is my sleeping bag. I actually have 2 sleeping bags, which is kind of a K-ville hack. For those extra cold nights, you get a little bit of extra protection. And then this is my pillow and my trusty, reusable fork. Don't worry, I wash it before I use it every time. And then I also keep a little coffee cup back here in case I ever want to run out and get some coffee and then come back to the table. And as you can see, I kind of decimated this goldfish container, which is empty now. It stays over here for some more. But yeah, this is kind of our tent.
It's a bit of a mess right now because we've been living here for several weeks, so things are kind of thrown everywhere. This is our newest addition. We won this couch during one of the attendance events, so I think this was one of the women's basketball games. They raffled it off to us. In terms of sleeping, during black tenting we had 10 people sleep in this tent, and it's a 10-person tent, so that's pretty comfortable. We had 5 on each side, and currently for white tenting we only need to have 2 people in the tent, so we only have sleeping bags set up on this side. And then a few weeks ago we were doing blue tenting, which was 6 people every night. So yeah, it's been pretty spacious. We have a good amount of room in the middle to keep snacks and things like that. We have a lantern. And the name of our tent is TENTS. It's kind of just a way to be funny and find happiness in the very late night checks. So that's why we decided to create a tent Instagram.
Yeah, a typical day you can walk through, see people, sitting on their lawn chairs around K-ville on the sidewalk doing homework. You go to the library tent, find people doing homework. There's a lot of homework during the day. And then it's pretty quiet other than during checks. There's not a lot going on. And then once you hit 10, 11 p.m., it starts to liven up a lot. And you end up with people coming out of their tents, hanging out, joining together, fighting the cold.
My favorite thing about tenting is that every time I come to K-ville, I see someone I know, and then my least favorite thing about tenting would probably be the same, that every time I come to K-ville, I see somebody I know. So there's really no escaping.
My least favorite thing is definitely getting woken up during the night, because I really like sleep, and it's really hard to sleep in the tent. But yeah, it's worth it, I hope.
Yeah, being in the tent the night before at 8:30 and being woken up at 3 and then 5 is just brutal. So that's probably my least favorite thing also. But just going back to the community, you meet so many people just from the tents around you that you can see around campus now, and you're like, hey, what's up? And these are people that you wouldn't have met otherwise, and it's just a really good community here.
My least favorite thing about the job is the inherently confrontational aspect, which is very ironic given that's a lot of the job. When you have to, be an authority figure over your peers and your friends, it's not always the easiest thing in the world, but I think it's really helped me as a person take criticism better, and above all, I want to make the community better for the tenters. It's a community that was made by the tenters, and so it should be the best it can be for them, and so taking that criticism, not taking it personally, and using it to better the community.
People who are black tenting, they're oh my god, it's so cold, I can't believe I have to sleep outside, and it's really not that bad. I think it's pretty chill, and it's nice to sleep with your friends in the tent. It's a giant sleepover.
I think my favorite thing about tenting is just always having people around, and the community that comes from having 12 people live together and go through this together for 5 weeks, 6 weeks for us.
So like I had my birthday during the one night where I had my night shift, and then everyone came and celebrated with me, and it was really sweet, and like it really made my birthday like really awesome. And it's just like I don't think I would not have gotten that same experience if I did in tent, so which was really awesome for me.
It's really, really fun to be able to see just like the community that comes together, especially like really late at night at weird hours, and like we get a lot of flack, but a lot of it's really friendly, and I wouldn't want to do any other job on campus.
I'm so excited for my first UNC game. I think it's definitely going to be worth tenting, and like all the UNC Duke games are always so good, and I hope this one's just as good as all the rest.
What's that line? It always delivers?
It always delivers.
Always delivers.
So excited. I can't wait.
Even though we'll be a little bit further back.
Hey,
Yeah.
every seat in Cameron's a good seat.
Sure.
If anything, we're more with like the real people. Like
The dirty white
tenters.
I'm actually going to miss the tent a lot. I've started to like really enjoy it. It's kind of like a cozy space, and it's like very homey.
We have a little debate over the name.
Yeah.
One half of the tent calls it Roy Williams Tears. I prefer the name Existential Crisis. Tent. Yeah.
No, I think we should rename it to Tent Apocalypse.
That might be our new.
Yeah. Or Tent Gate.
Thomas Gate.
Oh, we have a check now.
Check. Hey.
That's a check.
K-ville is a tradition unlike any other, but it is not unchanging. After a fiasco with the walk-up line 2 years ago, line monitors and administrators opted to create flex tenting. Now there's an app that some students use to create their tent schedule instead of a spreadsheet. But the tradition remains the same.
I spend about 4 to 5 hours a week making the schedule, just dealing with everyone's logistical challenges, meetings, classes, parties they want to go to.
But GTHC originally stands for Go to Hell Carolina, but we've taken a little twist, and GTHC.io stands for Game Tenting Help Center. So GTHC is a web platform for Duke students who are tenting before Duke versus UNC, and basically what our goal is to make the entire process of tenting before the game as easy as possible with a clean and easy user interface and automated scheduling. Last year's numbers, we had about 2,500 unique visitors to our site, and about 100 to 200 students who are consistently using it, meaning they're at least opening the app twice or 3 times a week.
The line monitors have been trying some new things out too.
We've really invested a lot into trying to improve the tenting experience and improve the relationship between tenters and line monitors, tenters and athletics, really sort of build those bonds across the K-ville community. So with that, we're really excited that several initiatives have already been incorporated, including the investment of the Academic Resource Center in K-ville, which has sponsored the study tent and equipped it, as well as having programming in Wilson and other places for tenters. We're excited to continue our partnership with Duke Wellness, who've made care packages and done programming of their own to make sure tenters are in that sort of space where they're equipped and supplied to take the conditions and take the cold. And then we're really excited that from a game day perspective, we've started getting Nolan Smith out to do pre-game hype meetings with all the crazies, which is something that everyone I think has enjoyed.
In Chapel Hill, there are no tents pitched outside the Dean Smith Center.
You just sit on your couch at home and register online. Find out, I think, like a week before the game. Maybe it's different for the Duke game, but you find out a few days before the game whether you got a ticket or not. Then you have different phases. So phase 1 shows up, I think, 2 hours before the game. Phase 2 after that. Phase 3 after that. Phase 1 gets like the best tickets, and so on and so forth. Duke's big tradition is before the game, the anticipation, the hype. Everyone's just angling to get a ticket, and then UNC's is like after the game, the atmosphere, just the crazy excitement, just elation after a win. I think that's where you see the difference between the two schools.
Krzyzewskiville is, of course, not without controversy. Guest opinion writers this semester have said tenters can be insensitive about homelessness and compared it to hazing.
Kim Reed called Krzyzewskiville a living thing, explaining that it has changed since they first pitched a tent more than 30 years ago. So how will K-ville change in the future?
I don't think it's a bad thing, but I think the future of K-ville may be just keeping tradition, because sometimes a real time capsule of actual history is traditions being kept. So yeah, of course we can add the technical twist to it, but the idea of hey, we're doing something that previous years and years of other Duke students have been doing, just like gives you a connection between any other Duke student, whether you're on campus or they're alums abroad, outside of campus. So I actually think, you know, there doesn't need to be innovation, right? But like, we'll keep tradition. I think that's the thing, the future of Kville, tradition with a twist.
I guess I've gotten used to it now, but it's still kind of crazy that it came from just this stupid, you know, kind of tipsy conversation. Just, oh, you know, this would be really funny if we did this. But what I love about it is that it's become so much a Duke experience. You know, I hope it continues on whatever terms the students want it to continue on. You know, if the students decide that, okay, it's kind of silly to be out here for all this time, let's just say 3 days, you know, that's fine. I just hope that they don't get rid of what is a very uniquely Duke experience.
What's so amazing about seeing Kville now, almost 20 years after my first experience with it, is how similar it is. It really hasn't changed that much, which I think is a testament to kind of what Kville is and what it represents about Duke as a whole and the student body. I think the most interesting experiences I have in Kville now are the fact that, you know, I come to games with my daughter, and you know, just the other day I was here and took pictures of my daughter in Kville, and well, it's so incredible to see my daughter sitting in Kville where I once was as an undergrad. I think what really sticks out in my head is the fact that when I was a student in Kville, I would have never imagined that version of my life. And that's what I think I really enjoy most about looking at the students now in Kville. And someday, 15, 20, 30, 40 years from now, they're going to be sitting back and they're going to be talking to a student in Kville, and they're going to be thinking, oh my gosh, I would have never imagined my life went where it did, but look where it is now. And isn't that incredible that we share this same history?